The cafeteria of Galactic Youth Academy floated in orbit around Velthara Prime, a station where thousands of alien students gathered to learn and grow. The massive hall buzzed with voices in hundreds of languages, clicks, chirps, and sounds that human ears couldn't even properly hear. Among all these strange beings sat Hana, a 17-year-old human girl with dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She ate her lunch quietly, reading something on her datapad while trying to ignore the stares. Being human at the academy meant being different. Earth was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest danger rating the Galactic Council had ever given to any planet. Most species came from safe worlds with gentle weather and no predators. Earth had hurricanes, earthquakes, venomous creatures, and 1,000 other ways to kill its inhabitants. Humans were rare in space because most aliens found them frightening. They moved differently, healed impossibly fast, and had something called an adrenaline response that other species didn't understand. Hana had spent 2 years at the academy trying to prove she wasn't dangerous. She kept her head down, studied hard, and never caused trouble. Her roommate Jiwon was the opposite, always making friends and joining clubs, but Hana preferred quiet. She just wanted to learn and maybe help people see that humans weren't monsters. Today, that careful peace shattered. A group of Krillian students approached her table. Krillians were 8 feet tall with thick exoskeletons that looked like natural armor. They were strong and proud, and many of them believed smaller species didn't deserve respect. The leader, a student named Vrek, loomed over Hana's table. "Look at the little Deathworlder," Vrek said loudly, making sure others could hear, eating her special food. "Must be nice getting extra privileges just because your planet is dangerous." Hana didn't look up. She had heard this before. Humans needed different nutrition than most species, so the academy provided supplements. Some students saw this as unfair treatment. "I heard humans are supposed to be so tough," another Krillian added. "But look how small she is. I could step on her." The group laughed. Hana kept reading, her jaw tight but her face calm. Getting angry would only prove their point. She just needed them to get bored and leave. Then Rek picked up a container of cleaning solution from a nearby cart. The liquid inside was harmless to Krillian exoskeletons, but highly corrosive to electronics and human skin. Before Hana could react, he poured it directly onto her datapad. The device sparked and died instantly. Hana jerked back as droplets splashed toward her hands. Her datapad wasn't just a school tool. It held letters from her family on Earth, pictures of her home, recordings of her mother's voice. It was her only connection to a world that was 4 months of space travel away. "Oops," Rek said, not sounding sorry at all. Hana stood slowly, her heart pounding. She looked at her ruined datapad, at the liquid still eating through its circuits, and then up at Rek. "That wasn't an accident," she said quietly. "You need to pay for a replacement and file an incident report." Rek laughed. "Or what, you'll cry to administration? Run along, little human. I'm not going anywhere without a report." Hana's voice stayed level, but inside her chest something uncomfortable was building. Her hands wanted to shake. Her breathing wanted to speed up. She forced herself to stay calm. That's when Drevtok arrived. He was a Krillian security guard, even larger than the students, wearing the dark uniform of Academy enforcement. Hana felt a small relief. Finally, an authority figure who could handle this properly. "What's the problem here?" Drevtok demanded. Hana explained what happened, pointing to her destroyed datapad. "I'm requesting an incident report for deliberate destruction of personal property." Drevtok barely glanced at the datapad. He looked at Rek, at the other Krillian students, and then back at Hana with clear annoyance. "I don't see any incident. Accidents happen. Move along." "It wasn't an accident," Hana insisted. "There are cameras. You can review the footage. Are you telling me how to do my job?" Drevtok stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. "I said move along, unless you want to add insubordination to your record." Hana's stomach twisted. This wasn't fair. This wasn't right. But what could she do? She was one small human against a guard who clearly had already decided to side with his own species. She turned to leave, hands clenched into fists, trying desperately to hold on to her calm. She made it 3 steps before Drevtok's hand clamped around her upper arm and yanked her backward. The pain was immediate and shocking. Krillian grip strength could dent metal. On Hana's arm, it felt like her bone might crack. She gasped, and the sound came out wrong, too sharp, too desperate. Something inside her snapped, not emotionally, biologically. Hana's vision tunneled. Sounds became muffled and distant. Her heart rate, which had been elevated, suddenly slowed to a deep, powerful rhythm. Every muscle in her body went completely still in a way that wasn't natural, wasn't peaceful. It was the stillness of a coiled spring, of a predator deciding whether to run or fight. Her eyes changed. The brown irises disappeared as her pupils dilated fully, spreading black across the entire visible surface of her eyes. It was an automatic response, allowing maximum light intake for better vision in what her ancient genetics interpreted as a life-or-death situation. To everyone watching, it looked like darkness had consumed her gaze entirely. The cafeteria fell silent. Students who had been laughing seconds ago backed away. Those who had studied Terran biology recognized what they were seeing. Humans had a threat response called Blackout state, where their already dangerous adrenaline system went into overdrive. Time slowed for them. Pain became distant. Strength increased as limiters in their muscles released. Their bodies became weapons. Drevtok still held Hana's arm. He looked down at her, confused by the sudden silence. And then he saw her eyes. Black, empty, fixed on him with the kind of focus that prey animals recognized right before death. He had made a terrible mistake. Hana moved. Her free hand came up faster than Krillian nervous systems could process. She grabbed Drevtok's wrist with strength that shouldn't exist in her small frame, twisted in a way that used leverage instead of raw power, and the guard's grip broke. His shock baton came up automatically, a trained response to threat. It was the worst thing he could have done. Hana's hand intercepted the baton mid-swing. She caught it, held it, and with both hands, snapped the reinforced metal rod in half like a dry branch. The crack echoed through the silent cafeteria. She still hadn't said a word. Her black eyes remained fixed on Drevtok, and her body remained in that terrible predatory stillness. The guard stumbled backward and fell, his exoskeleton armor clattering against the floor. He scrambled away from her, all 8 feet of armored Krillian reduced to prey trying to escape a predator. Hana stood there, broken baton pieces in her hands, surrounded by terrified silence. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to sound. The silence in the cafeteria felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at once. Hana stood completely still, her black eyes fixed on Drevtok as he pressed himself against the floor. The broken pieces of his shock baton lay in her hands. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't breathing hard. She just existed in that moment with an intensity that made every instinct in the room scream danger. Students nearest to her had backed away to the walls. Some had already fled through the exits. Others watched from behind tables and pillars, unable to look away despite their fear. A Veltharian student near the back whispered to her friend, "That's Blackout state. I read about it in xenobiology. Humans become apex predators when threatened." Vrek and his Krillian friends had disappeared the moment Hana's eyes changed. They weren't stupid enough to stay near an activated Deathworlder. Even the other security guards who had started to respond to the alarm had stopped at the cafeteria entrance, unwilling to approach. They called for backup, for a supervisor, for someone who knew how to handle a human in this condition. Hana's head tilted slightly, still watching Drevtok. Her body wanted to move, to finish neutralizing the threat, but some deeper part of her consciousness was fighting the biological programming. She hadn't chosen this. She didn't want to hurt anyone, but her body didn't care what she wanted. It cared about survival. Then a voice cut through the muffled sounds, reaching her altered hearing. A human voice, speaking Korean. "Hana-ya, it's okay. You're safe now." The words were calm and steady, carrying an accent from Seoul. Hana's head turned slightly toward the sound, though her body remained coiled and ready. A young man walked slowly across the cafeteria, his hands visible and empty. He was human, older than Hana by a year or two, wearing the Academy's Gravity Ball team jacket. Tae-sung was one of only 3 humans at the entire Academy. He was in his final year, preparing to graduate and join the Galactic Merchant Fleet. Most students knew him as friendly and athletic, always smiling. Right now his face was serious but not afraid. He kept walking toward Hana at a measured pace, never rushing, never showing threat. "Gwenchana," he said softly. "It's all right. The threat is gone. You can come back now." He continued speaking in Korean using simple words from home. He talked about Earth, about the rain in summer, about the smell of street food in Busan. Normal things, safe things. His voice was a lifeline, back to reality, pulling Hana out of the biological state that had taken over. Slowly, impossibly slowly, the blackness began to recede from Hana's eyes. Color returned at the edges first, brown bleeding back into the darkness. Her pupils contracted, adjusting back to normal size. Her breathing, which had been so slow and deep, hitched and became faster, more human. The broken baton pieces fell from her trembling hands and clattered on the floor. Hana blinked. Once. Twice. She looked around the cafeteria as if seeing it for the first time. The empty spaces where students had been. The overturned chairs. Drevtok still on the floor, staring at her with unconcealed terror. She looked down at her hands, at the metal pieces at her feet, and confusion crossed her face. What? Her voice came out rough and uncertain. What happened? Her legs gave out. Taesung moved quickly, catching her before she hit the ground. The adrenaline crash was brutal. Her whole body started shaking uncontrollably, her muscles exhausted from the impossible tension they had held. She felt cold and hot at the same time, and her arm where Drevtok had grabbed her throbbed with delayed pain. I've got you, Taesung said, supporting her weight easily. Humans were strong compared to most species, and he had experience with this. Just breathe. Let it pass through you. I didn't mean to, Hana whispered, staring at the broken baton. I don't remember. Did I hurt anyone? No. You broke his weapon and you scared everyone, but you didn't hurt anyone. Taesung helped her sit against a wall, putting himself between her and the crowd. You showed restraint even in Blackout state. That's impressive. Hana didn't feel impressive. She felt sick and scared and confused. Fragments of memory came back in flashes. The pain in her arm, the tunnel vision, the feeling of metal breaking in her hands. But it was all distant, like watching someone else's actions through foggy glass. Director Velmreth arrived with a full security team. The director was a Veltharian, a species known for their telepathic abilities and calm wisdom. She looked at the scene with all four of her eyes, taking in every detail. Drevtok still on the floor. The broken baton. Hana sitting against the wall, shaking and barely conscious. The terrified students. Secure the area, Velmreth ordered. I want all camera footage from the last 30 minutes. No one leaves until we have statements. Her gaze fell on Hana. Get her to medical immediately. I'll take her, Taesung said. You'll both go to medical, then to holding for questioning. Velmreth's voice wasn't cruel, but it was firm. This is a serious incident. Protocol must be followed. 2 guards approached carefully, keeping their distance, their body language non-threatening. They had replaced their weapons with medical scanners. Taesung helped Hana to her feet, keeping a steady hand on her shoulder. She could barely walk, her legs weak and uncoordinated. As they moved toward the exit, Hana caught sight of her reflection in a window. She looked small and tired and human, nothing like the creature she had become minutes ago. She didn't recognize herself anymore. At medical, the doctors scanned her thoroughly. Her heart rate was still elevated. Her stress hormones were through the ceiling. The bruise forming on her arm showed clear handprint marks from Krillian fingers. They documented everything carefully, taking pictures and biological readings. Has this happened before? The medical officer asked, a gentle insectoid species with soft, clicking speech. No, Hana whispered. Never. I've always kept control. The doctor made notes. Blackout state is an automatic response in humans. You couldn't have prevented it once the trigger threshold was crossed. The pain combined with the threat from an authority figure created perfect conditions for activation. Hana closed her eyes. She had tried so hard to be normal, to fit in, to prove humans weren't dangerous. And in one moment, everything she'd built had collapsed. Now everyone would see her as exactly what they feared. A Deathworlder. A monster. In another medical room, Drevtok was being treated for shock. His body wasn't injured, but his mind couldn't process what had happened. He had grabbed a small, weak-looking human girl and she had transformed into something that made every survival instinct in his genetics scream run. Director Velmreth reviewed the footage personally. She watched Rek pour corrosive liquid on the datapad, watched Hana request an incident report calmly and reasonably, watched Drevtok dismiss her, intimidate her, and then physically assault her with excessive force. She watched the exact moment Hana's eyes changed, the biological cascade that followed. The director's expression remained neutral, but inside, she was troubled. This incident would have consequences far beyond the Academy. The Galactic Council would get involved. There would be hearings, debates, and political maneuvering. The question of whether humans belonged in integrated space would be raised again. But first, she needed to understand what really happened. And more importantly, she needed to decide what justice looked like when biology and choice collided. In the medical holding room, Hana sat on a simple bed with Taesung in a chair nearby. Her roommate Jiwon had been allowed to visit, and she sat on the bed holding Hana's hand. "Everyone's talking about it," Jiwon said quietly. "The whole academy knows. Some people are scared. Some think you're a hero for standing up to Drevtok. It's chaos out there." Hana stared at her hands. Normal hands. Human hands that had snapped metal like it was nothing. "I'm going to be expelled," she said flatly. "They'll send me back to Earth." Taesung shook his head. "Not if I have anything to say about it. You defended yourself against assault. You didn't choose to activate. You didn't attack anyone even when your biology was screaming at you to." "Will that matter?" Hana's voice was small and tired. "It has to," Jiwon said firmly. "Because if they punish you for this, they're saying humans don't have the right to defend themselves. They're saying our biology makes us criminals, and I won't accept that." Outside the medical wing, the academy continued buzzing with conversation and fear and wonder. News of the incident was already spreading beyond the station, carried on communication networks to distant worlds. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What happens when you hurt a Deathworlder and her eyes turn black? 3 days after the incident, Hana sat in a small conference room waiting for her future to be decided. She wore the Academy's formal uniform, her arm bandaged where the bruise had turned deep purple and yellow. Jiwon sat beside her and Taesung stood near the window, his arms crossed. They weren't supposed to be there, but Hana had requested them as character witnesses, and Director Velmreth had allowed it. The room felt too large and too quiet. Hana kept replaying the cafeteria scene in her mind, trying to remember details through the fog of her blackout state. She remembered the fear on Drevtok's face, the sound of metal snapping, the way everyone had looked at her afterward, like she was exactly what they had always suspected humans to be, dangerous. The door opened and several figures entered. Director Velmreth led the way, followed by 2 Galactic Council representatives and someone Hana recognized from news broadcasts. Ambassador Lee Minho, Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council. He was in his 50s with gray starting to show in his hair, wearing the formal diplomatic uniform of Earth's government. Behind them came Ambassador Kyril of the Krillian Empire, his exoskeleton polished to a dark shine, his 4 eyes fixed on Hana with obvious hostility. This was worse than Hana had feared. This wasn't just an Academy disciplinary hearing anymore. This was political. Everyone took their seats around the long table. Director Velmreth activated the room's recording systems. This hearing will determine the Academy's response to the incident that occurred in Cafeteria Section 7. Let the record show all parties are present. Ambassador Kyril didn't wait for formal proceedings. This incident proves what many of us have long suspected. Humans are too dangerous for integration into civilized space. This girl attacked a security officer without provocation, displaying the kind of violence we should never tolerate in our institutions. "That's not what happened," Jiwon said sharply, but Velmreth raised a hand for silence. "We will review the evidence systematically," the director said. She projected the cafeteria footage onto the wall and everyone watched in silence. They saw Rek pour the corrosive liquid, saw Hana's calm request for an incident report, saw Drevtok's dismissal and intimidation. Then came the moment he grabbed her arm, and everyone in the room could see the way Hana's face changed from determination to shock to pain. The moment her eyes went black was clearly visible, as was everything that followed. When the footage ended, the room stayed quiet for a moment. Then Ambassador Minho spoke, his voice measured and professional. What you witnessed is called an adrenaline cascade response. It's an automatic biological function that humans cannot control consciously. When a human experiences certain triggers, particularly physical pain combined with a perception of mortal threat from a larger opponent, ancient survival genetics activate. Convenient excuse for violence, Kirill said. It's not an excuse. It's biology. Minho pulled up a holographic display showing human anatomy. Every species in this room evolved on their homeworld. Krillians developed exoskeleton armor because your world had predators with powerful bites. Veltharians developed telepathy because your world required complex herd coordination for survival. Humans developed an extreme threat response because Earth tried to kill us every single day. He expanded the display to show Earth's statistics. Predators capable of hunting humans. Natural disasters, diseases, venomous creatures, temperature extremes. We didn't have armor. We didn't have venom or claws or natural weapons. What we had was the ability to push our bodies beyond normal limits when death was close. We called it different things throughout our history. Berserker rage, second wind, hysterical strength. Now we call it blackout state. That makes them more dangerous, not less, Kirill argued, does it? Minho looked directly at the Krillian ambassador. Your guard grabbed a teenage girl with enough force to fracture bones. She could have killed him in seconds once her response activated. Humans in blackout state have torn metal doors off hinges, lifted vehicles, fought off multiple armed attackers. Do you know what Hana did instead? He pulled up the footage again, freezing on the moment Hana held the broken baton. She broke his weapon to neutralize the immediate threat. Then she stopped. Her body was screaming at her to eliminate the danger completely. Every instinct she had was telling her to keep fighting, and she chose not to. That's not the action of a mindless, violent creature. That's the action of someone maintaining their humanity even when their biology wants them to be a monster. One of the council representatives, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, asked a question that appeared as text on everyone's screens. If humans cannot control this response, how can we ensure safety in integrated environments? Taesung stepped forward. May I speak? Velmrith nodded permission. I'm human, as you can see. I've been at this academy for 3 years without incident. But during my first year, there was an accident in the gravity training facility. A regulator failed and nearly crushed 3 students, including me. I went into blackout state trying to hold the falling equipment long enough for the others to escape. He pulled up his own medical records with permission, showing the incident report. I didn't attack anyone. I didn't hurt anyone. My biology activated to help me survive. And once the threat passed, I returned to normal. We're trained from childhood on Earth to recognize the signs, to control what we can control, and to remove ourselves from situations that might trigger the response. Hana's young, Taesung continued. She's been trying so hard to fit in that she suppressed every human instinct. She ignored warning signs, pushed down her natural responses, and tried to be something she's not. When Drevtok assaulted her, she had no framework for managing the cascade because she'd spent 2 years pretending it didn't exist. Jiwon stood up now, holding a datapad. I've done research on this. Every species at this academy has dangerous capabilities. Krillians can crush metal. Veltharians can override minds with telepathy if they choose to. Therian students produce venom that can kill most species in minutes. But we trust them to control their abilities. Why are humans different? Because they claim they can't control it, Kirill said. No, Minho corrected. We can't control when it activates, just like you can't control your digestive system or your heartbeat. But we can control what we do once it's activated. And the evidence shows Hana did exactly that. Director Velmrith studied the frozen image of Hana with her black eyes and the broken baton. There's another element to consider. Our investigation revealed that Drevtok had 17 prior complaints about excessive force and bias against non-Krillian students. All were dismissed by his supervisors without proper investigation. This incident didn't happen in isolation. It was the result of systemic failure. Kirill shifted uncomfortably. The actions of one guard don't reflect on all Krillians. Exactly, Minho said quietly. Just as the biology of one human shouldn't condemn all humans. The hearing continued for hours. They brought in xenobiology experts who explained human physiology in detail. They interviewed students who had witnessed the incident. Some spoke against Hana, saying they felt unsafe around humans now. Others spoke in her defense, including a small Veltharian student named Prilix, who tearfully admitted that Drevtok had harassed her multiple times, and she had been too afraid to report it. Hana didn't hurt anyone, Prelix said, her telepathic voice trembling in everyone's minds. But Drevtok hurt many of us. He just did it in ways that didn't leave visible marks. As the testimony piled up, a picture emerged that was far more complex than simple violence. This was about power dynamics, about bias, about what happened when someone pushed too hard against someone who couldn't push back until suddenly they could. Finally, Hana was asked to speak. She stood on shaking legs, her hands gripped together. I don't remember everything that happened when my eyes changed. It's like watching through thick glass. But I remember the feeling. I was scared. I was in pain. And something inside me that I'd been holding down for 2 years just broke free. Her voice was quiet but clear. I don't want to be dangerous. I don't want people to be afraid of me. I came to this academy because I believe humans can be part of the galactic community, but I can't change what I am. I can't make my biology less human just to make others comfortable. She looked at each person at the table. If the price of being here is pretending I'm not from Earth, pretending I don't have the genetics that kept my species alive, then maybe I don't belong here. But I think that would be the galaxy's loss as much as mine, because humans have more to offer than just being dangerous. We have determination. We have hope. We survived a world that wanted us dead, and we made it to the stars anyway. We're Deathworlders, Hana said, but that doesn't mean we bring death. It means we know how to survive. And maybe that's something worth having in your civilization. The room fell silent. Then Ambassador Minho smiled slightly, a small, proud expression. Director Velmreth made notes on her datapad. Even Kirill seemed uncertain now, his earlier hostility tempered by the complexity of what he'd heard. The hearing was adjourned for deliberation. Hana walked out into the hallway where dozens of students had gathered, waiting for news. Some looked at her with fear, some with curiosity, a few with something like. The academy felt different after the hearing. Hana was confined to her quarters while the council deliberated, allowed only supervised visits to classes and meals. Everywhere she went, conversations stopped. Students watched her with expressions she couldn't quite read. Fear, yes, but also curiosity. Some even nodded to her respectfully, though they kept their distance. Jiwon stayed with her constantly, a steady presence in the uncertainty. They sat together in their shared room, a space designed for human comfort with Earth-normal gravity and temperature. Hana stared out the window at the stars, wondering if she'd be seeing them from a transport ship heading home soon. Stop thinking like that, Jiwon said, not looking up from her datapad. You're not getting expelled. You don't know that. I know the evidence is on your side. I know public opinion is shifting. Jiwon turned her datapad around, showing Hana a student forum discussion. Look, the thread was titled The Drevtok Problem and had thousands of responses. Students from dozens of species were sharing their own experiences with the guard and his colleagues. Stories of harassment, excessive force, dismissiveness, and bias. What had started as discussion about Hana's incident had uncovered something much larger. 23 students have filed formal complaints in the last 2 days, Jiwon said, all against Krillian security staff. The director can't ignore this anymore. There was a knock at the door. Taesung entered, carrying food from the cafeteria. Brought you dinner. Figured you wouldn't want to face the crowds. Thanks. Hana accepted the meal without enthusiasm. She hadn't had much appetite since the incident. Food tasted like dust in her mouth. Taesung sat down, his expression serious. I need to tell you something about my first year here. About the gravity accident I mentioned in the hearing. Hana looked up, surprised. Taesung rarely talked about his past. It wasn't just an accident, he continued. 3 of us were training when the regulator failed. The other 2 students were Veltharian, much smaller and more fragile than humans. When the equipment started falling, I went into blackout state. I held up a piece of machinery that weighed probably 300 kilos. Just held it there while they crawled out. His hands trembled slightly at the memory. When I came back to myself, my muscles were torn. I'd compressed my spine. The doctors said I'd pushed my body past what should have been possible. But those 2 students were alive because of it. What happened after? Hana asked. Some students called me a hero. Others were terrified of what I'd done. My roommate requested a transfer. For months, people treated me like I might explode into violence at any moment. Taesung met her eyes. But slowly things got better. People saw that I was still just me. That one moment of biology activating didn't define who I was. How did you deal with it? I stopped hiding what I was. Started teaching people about human biology. Answering questions honestly. Some people never got comfortable around me, and that's their choice. But others learned. They understood that being dangerous and being violent are different things. A message came through on Hana's datapad. She opened it and blinked in surprise. It was a request for a meeting from someone she hadn't expected to hear from. Drevtok. The meeting was arranged in a supervised counseling room with a Veltharian mediator present. When Hana entered, she barely recognized the Krillian guard. He looked smaller somehow, his exoskeleton less imposing. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Thank you for agreeing to this," the mediator said. "Drevtok requested this meeting as part of his processing. Hana, you're under no obligation to stay if you're uncomfortable." Hana sat down carefully, her heart rate elevated. Being in the same room with him brought back flashes of memory. The pain in her arm, the feeling of helplessness. The moment everything went black, Drevtok spoke, his voice rough. "I wanted to apologize, and to explain, though I know explanation isn't excuse." Hana stayed silent, waiting. "In Krillian culture, strength is everything. Physical power determines status. We're taught from hatching that those who are smaller are lesser. When humans arrived at the academy, I saw you as weak. Small bodies, no armor, no natural weapons. I thought you didn't deserve the respect given to warrior species." He finally looked at her, and Hana saw something she never expected to see in those alien eyes. Fear. Real. Genuine fear. "When you went into that state," Drevtok continued, "when your eyes changed and you broke my baton like it was nothing, I understood. Your species didn't become spacefaring by being weak. You did it by being too stubborn to die. You fought and clawed your way to the stars from a nightmare world, and somehow you chose mercy when you could have chosen violence. I could have killed you," he said quietly. "That's what I realized. I was on the ground, helpless, and you were standing over me with the strength to tear me apart. But you didn't. You broke my weapon instead of breaking me. That's not weakness. That's strength of a kind my people don't teach." Hana's throat felt tight. "I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified and out of control." "You were in control," Drevtok insisted. "That's what haunts me. Your biology was screaming at you to eliminate the threat, and you chose not to. I've spent 3 days researching human history. The wars you fought, the predators you survived, the disasters you endured. And through all of it, you developed not just the ability to fight, but the ability to choose not to fight." The mediator spoke gently. "Drevtok has been terminated from his position. He's also facing criminal charges for assault. But he wanted you to know that this incident changed his understanding of what strength means. I was wrong about humans," Drevtok said. "I was wrong about you, and I'm sorry." Hana didn't know what to say. She'd expected anger or defensiveness, not this raw honesty. Finally, she nodded. "I accept your apology. I hope you learned from this." After the meeting, Hana felt strange. Not better exactly, but different. Like something had shifted slightly. Over the next few days, other students began approaching her. First one, then several, then dozens. They asked questions about Earth, about human biology, about what it felt like to be from a death world. Hana found herself explaining things she'd never put into words before. "We don't have thick skin like some species," she told a group in the common area. "We scar easily, bruise easily, but we heal fast. A broken bone that would cripple some species permanently, we can recover from in weeks. We evolved to take damage and keep going." A Therian student asked, "Is it true humans can run for days without stopping?" "Yes, it's called persistence hunting. Our ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not fast, but we don't stop, ever. That's kind of our thing." The questions continued. Some were scientific, some were personal. Hana answered them honestly, not hiding the dangerous parts or exaggerating the impressive parts. Just truth. Jiwan started a seminar series on human culture and biology, and to everyone's surprise, it was packed. Students from every species attended, genuinely curious to understand the aliens they'd been taught to fear. One evening, Hana found herself in the observation deck with an unexpected companion. Thelris was a Veltharian artist, quiet and gentle, who specialized in painting portraits. He'd asked if he could paint Hana, and she'd agreed, mostly because she was curious why anyone would want to. "You have interesting eyes," Thelris said, mixing colors on his palette. His telepathic voice was soft in her mind. "They change when you feel things. Humans are very expressive. They scared everyone when they turned black, Hana said quietly. Fear and understanding are not opposites, Thelris replied. I can fear the ocean and still respect its beauty. I can acknowledge that you're dangerous and still want to know you. He showed her the painting in progress. It was her face, eyes brown and warm, with Earth rising behind her through the observation window. She looked strong but not threatening. Human. Is that how you see me? She asked. That's who you are, Thelris said simply. The biology is part of you, but it's not all of you. Back in her quarters, Hana talked with her mother through the long-range communication system. The delay was significant, but hearing her mother's voice helped. I went through something similar, her mother said. The transmission was slightly distorted, but the emotion came through clearly. I was a soldier, and I went into blackout state during a building collapse. Saved 3 people, terrified 12 others. For a while I thought I was broken. What changed? Hana asked. I realized that power isn't something to fear. It's something to respect. Your body can do incredible things when needed. That's not a curse, honey. That's a gift from every human who survived long enough to pass their genes to the next generation. You just have to learn when to use it and when to hold it back. I'm scared I won't be able to control it next time. You will, because now you know what it feels like. You know the warning signs, and you know you're strong enough to choose restraint even when every instinct says otherwise. That's what makes us human, Hana. Not the violence, the choice. As the days passed, something unexpected happened. The Academy started to change, not just in how they saw Hana, but in how they saw themselves. The Drevtok incident had exposed problems that had existed for years, hidden beneath the surface of their supposedly civilized society. And somehow, a small human girl with eyes that could turn black had become the catalyst for making things better. The Tribunal's decision came 2 weeks after the incident. Hana stood in the formal hearing chamber once again, but this time the room felt different. Less hostile, more curious. Students filled the observation gallery, permitted to attend the announcement. Hana could see Jiwon and Taesung in the front row, both looking nervous but hopeful. Director Velmreth stood at the center of the council table, her 4 eyes reflecting the chamber's soft light. After extensive review of evidence, testimony, and consultation with xenobiology experts, this tribunal has reached its decision. The room fell completely silent. Hana's response has been determined to be justified self-defense, triggered by assault from a security officer. Her blackout state activation was an involuntary biological response to genuine threat. No disciplinary action will be taken against her. Hana felt her knees go weak with relief. Jiwon's quiet cheer carried across the chamber. However, Velmreth continued, this incident has revealed significant problems within our institution. Former security officer Drevtok has been permanently removed from duty and faces criminal charges for assault and abuse of authority. Additionally, we have identified a pattern of discrimination and excessive force complaints that were improperly dismissed. The director's gaze swept across the chamber. Effective immediately, all security personnel will undergo mandatory cross-species biology and cultural sensitivity training. We are implementing a new oversight system for complaint resolution that will include student representatives, and we are establishing a diversity council to ensure all species feel safe and respected at this academy. She looked directly at Hana. Ms. Hana has volunteered to help develop educational materials about human biology and culture. We encourage all students to take advantage of these resources. Fear comes from ignorance. Understanding comes from education. Ambassador Minho stood, addressing the council. Earth thanks the Tribunal for this fair judgment. We understand that integrating humans into galactic society is challenging. We're different in significant ways, but we believe that diversity makes civilization stronger, not weaker. Hana represents the best of what humanity offers: resilience, determination, and the choice to show mercy, even when biology demands violence. Kirill, the Krillian ambassador, also stood. He looked uncomfortable but spoke clearly. The Krillian Empire acknowledges that one of our own initiated this incident through inappropriate actions. We do not condone Drevtok's behavior. Moving forward, we will review our cultural training regarding interaction with other species, particularly those from high classification worlds. It wasn't a complete apology, but it was something. Progress was slow, but it was still progress. After the hearing, students surrounded Hana in the corridors. Some wanted to shake her hand. Others just wanted to say they were glad she was staying. A few kept their distance, still uncertain, but even they looked less afraid than before. Over the following months, the academy transformed in small but important ways. Hana's seminar on human biology became one of the most popular elective courses. She taught students about adrenaline, about endurance, about the strange and wonderful ways humans had adapted to survive Earth's challenges. "We sweat," she explained to a fascinated class. "Most species here don't understand why, but it's actually an incredible cooling system. We can run in heat that would kill most predators. We just keep going while they overheat and give up." A small crystalline student asked, "Is it true humans bond with anything?" Hana laughed. "Pretty much. We've domesticated predators into pets. We name our vehicles. We apologize to furniture when we bump into it. We form emotional attachments to plants. It's weird, but it's us." The students laughed with her, not at her. It felt different. Better. Jiwan's research on Deathworld species became the foundation for new curriculum across multiple departments. She proved that species from dangerous worlds brought unique strengths to galactic civilization, problem-solving abilities honed by constant challenges, stress resistance, adaptability. These weren't flaws to overcome, but gifts to celebrate. Taesung graduated with honors and accepted a position with the merchant fleet, but not before establishing a support network for human students. He created guidelines for recognizing blackout state triggers, techniques for managing stress, and protocols for safe activation if needed. The information was shared with all incoming human students and their alien roommates. "Knowledge removes fear," he told Hana before leaving. "You started something important here. Keep it going." Drevtok's trial concluded with him being assigned to cultural rehabilitation rather than prison. He had to complete extensive education on species diversity and work in community service. Hana heard he'd requested to help develop the new security training program, using his own experience as a cautionary example. She didn't know if he was truly changed or just scared, but at least he was trying. 6 months after the incident, Hana stood in the same observation deck where Thelris had painted her. The Veltharian artist was there with her now, not as subject and painter, but as something more. Something that made her heart beat faster in a completely different way than Blackout State ever had. "I finished the painting series," Thelris said, pulling up images on his datapad. He'd created 12 portraits of Hana in different moments, studying, laughing, teaching. In one, her eyes were black, but even in that image, she looked human. Powerful, yes. Dangerous, yes, but still herself. "They're beautiful," Hana said softly. "They're true," Thelris corrected. He took her hand gently, his touch light and careful. "You taught me that dangerous and bad aren't the same thing. I was afraid of humans before I met you. Now I'm just fascinated," Hana smiled. Dating an alien artist who could literally read her emotions telepathically was interesting, to say the least. But it worked. They worked. The Academy held its first Interspecies Understanding Festival that spring. Students from every species set up displays about their homeworlds, their biology, their cultures. The human booth was packed all day. Hana and Jiwan demonstrated human endurance by running on treadmills for hours while explaining the mechanics. They showed videos of Earth's incredible biodiversity, from deep ocean trenches to mountain peaks. Taesung returned for the festival, bringing 3 new human students who would be attending next term. He introduced them to Hana like she was passing a torch. "This is Hana," he told them. "She's the one who made this place safe for us. Learn from her." The new students looked at Hana with something like awe. She felt uncomfortable with it. "I'm not special," she said. "I just stopped pretending to be something I'm not." "That's exactly what makes you special," one of the new students replied. During the festival's closing ceremony, Director Velmrith announced a new scholarship program for students from high-classification worlds. These students face unique challenges in integrated environments. This program will provide additional support, not because they need charity, but because we recognize that diversity requires commitment. Different doesn't mean deficient. Hana was asked to speak at the ceremony. She stood at the podium looking out at thousands of students from hundreds of worlds, and she thought about how far she'd come since that day in the cafeteria. "I'm from Earth," she began. "Class 12 Deathworld, the highest danger rating in known space. For a long time I thought that meant I had to hide what I was to fit in. I tried to be smaller, quieter, less human." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But something my mother told me changed how I see things. She said that our biology isn't a curse. It's a gift from every human who survived long enough to pass their genes forward. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we not only survived, we thrived. We made art and music and stories. We built cities and ships and dreams. Yes, we're dangerous, Hana continued, her voice stronger now. When threatened, our eyes can turn black and our bodies can do impossible things. But that's not all we are. We're also the species that domesticated wolves into dogs just because we wanted friends. We're the species that went to space not just to explore, but to see if anyone else was out there because we didn't want to be alone. She looked directly at the crowd. Every species here is dangerous in their own way. You have natural weapons, abilities, strengths that could harm others if misused. But you don't define yourselves by your capacity for violence. You define yourselves by your choices. That's what I learned here. That's what I hope we can all learn from each other. We're all dangerous. We're all different. And that's exactly why we're stronger together than we ever could be apart. The applause started slowly, then built into something overwhelming. Students from species that had feared her now stood and cheered. It wasn't about her, really. It was about what she represented. The possibility that different could work. That dangerous didn't mean enemy. That understanding could overcome fear. After the ceremony, Hana returned to the observation deck. It had become her favorite place to think, to decompress, to just be. Earth was visible in the distance, blue and green and beautiful. Home. A world that had shaped her in fundamental ways, for better and worse. Jiwan found her there, as she always did. Big day, her roommate said, leaning against the railing beside her. Big year, Hana corrected. I can't believe it's only been 6 months since everything happened.